she's doing with Fox News on Wednesday. We're going to go and begin with those enemy from within comments. I mean, Trump himself has not even sought to clarify it. His campaign statement was this: President Trump is 100% correct. Those who seek to undermine democracy by sowing chaos in our elections are a direct threat. Just like the terrorists from Afghanistan that was arrested for plotting multiple attacks on Election Day within the United States. Unquote. Joining me now, retired Major General Randy Manner. He endorsed Kamala Harris for president. General, thank you for being here. That phrase, I wonder what your immediate thought was when you hear the enemy from within. I mean, the vice president took that on quite forcefully tonight, talking about his threats possibly to use the military. What was your take and reaction?
So, first of all, the vice president is correct. You're correct. While he's not in office, he cannot do anything to harm Americans directly. If he was to be the commander-in-chief again, everything changes. The Supreme Court has given him immunity. And the threshold for turning the National Guard into his personal police force is quite low. As long as he has a consenting governor, he can authorize the funds to pay them as the commander-in-chief. And he can use the National Guard almost in any way that he wants. And most Americans don't know how very easy it would be for an unhinged president to use the military against our own citizens.
Could he force an unwilling governor to do the same, or he would have to have one complicit?
So it's easy if the governor is complicit. If it's an unwilling governor, he could consider using the active duty. There are so many things that could be done because these are areas where sane men don't go. It's basically the guardrails of our democracy. The rule of law prevents civilian leaders from going where they should not go. But President Trump is not like any sane leader.
One of the common pushbacks I hear when anyone sort of opines about the prospect of him using the military is they say that you are undermining the military. You are not giving them enough credit. They would not perform or follow an unlawful order of any kind. What do you say to that?
So it's very important to understand that the President of the United States, he or she selects all the officers for promotion in our military. Congress, the Senate approves those nominations, but it's the President who does it. So under Project 2025, it is proposed that he's going to require the equivalent of a loyalty oath, or they call it an interview, of all 3- and 4-star generals. Well, you can imagine, it's only because we had people like Secretary of Defense Mark Esper and then the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Milley, with their strong personalities that served as a guardrail on the way to block the president from doing some quite, frankly, illegal and inappropriate actions while he was president.
Speaking of Joint Chiefs Mark Milley, he told Bob Woodward, he was the chairman of that, of course, Trump is now the most dangerous person to this country. I had suspicions when I talked to you about his mental decline and so forth, but now I realize he's a total fascist. This is a stunning statement from somebody of such high ranking.
Yes.
What does it say that someone like Milley would vocalize this and believe it?
Well, I'm very proud of General Milley for saying what he did to Bob Woodward. It's important that we step back for a second. I'm so surprised how many people do not even know what the concept of fascism is. It's something, so let's just back up a second. So if you go to Webster online, you're going to find that fascism is defined as, it's usually nationalistic, it's far right. Okay, let's see. So that's certainly the Trump campaign. And Trump, it's going to be intolerant of dissenting opinions. Okay, we got to check on that. There's a contempt for the rule of law, or only the laws they want to follow. We got to check on that. And then also unquestioning obedience to the supreme leader. Okay, check. And then lastly, it's this concept of a supremacy of a race or a religion. Well, check, check. White and Christian are the backbone of his people. That is actually the definition of fascism. And I encourage your viewers to look it up themselves and draw their own conclusions. Well, Mark Milley, extremely well educated, He's very articulate, very smart man. He and I worked together in the Pentagon many years ago, literally person to person for a long time. If he, as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, is calling the president a fascist, I am so proud of him for breaking that barrier to speak to the truth that he is. The challenge is because most MAGA Republicans, and please understand, I am not referring to Republicans in general, but the very far right, the hardcore, they don't understand what fascism is. The reality is they are, in fact, fascists themselves by the definition. And here's the sad part. The people who vote for Trump, they don't realize that they are also supporting a fascist. And that is very bad for our country, and it's done out of ignorance in most cases. It's a very sad state of affairs that we have a fascist running for the president of the United States.
General, it's stunning on two fronts. On the one hand, so often we are surprised with good reason when there is a crossover from military personnel and others to talk about politics. And there's a reason there is distance from there. But to feel so strongly, to articulate the way that you have, or that the former Joint Chairman spoke about, is very telling about how perhaps nervous you must be at the prospects of Trump being in office again.
That's absolutely correct. As a commander-in-chief, he's the only president who's ever called our military and veterans suckers and losers.
Which, of course, he denies.
Of course. And I actually respect General Kelly for his integrity as well, to report it as it actually happened, backed up by others. I think this is also very important to remember that I've been apolitical all of my life.
Right.
I'm part of an organization of over 1,000 generals and admirals and ambassadors and senior enlisted leaders who support Vice President Harris and Governor Walz. We have been apolitical, and it is very difficult for us to be able to speak up at this time, but we must.
General, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.